works now, so that's good. Sorry about that, though. So, thank you guys once again for tuning in to another True Crime Saturday. I do apologize for the technical issues we had at the very beginning. I'm not sure what was going on with that. But, I want to give a couple updates before we get into tonight's show. So officially, you guys are going to be able to start using the Crowworks Entertainment website. We've officially got that up and running. Everything will be running through there. So for those that are following Facebook pages, things like this, things will still pop up there. It's just this is going to be kind of like the hub. So if you guys are curious about maybe a show, interviews, anything like this, that's all going to be up on there. Of course, there will be details that pop up on Facebook groups, or not pages, groups, but pages, and on Twitter and the usual social media platforms as well. So there's gonna be some changes that go when it comes to posting and things like this. But for the most part, our schedule will retain the same time and everything. Yeah. So tonight we are going to be getting into a case I've covered a long time ago over on Twitch, before my channel was suspended for providing the truth. But neither here nor there. So, this is a very, very strange case. For those that have not heard of this case, it breaks down simply this way. These three children, the Beaumont children, were dropped off at the beach by their father early morning-ish. And he was going to be leaving right from there to go to his, supposed to be like a 3-day, some kind of an event, like some kind of a sales conference event or something like this. Over in Snow Point, something like this, Southern Australia. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours or so away from Glenelg, where they lived and where they were dropped off, right? But the children went missing later that afternoon. Now, I have questions regarding the dad's alibi and all this kind of stuff because, if this was a murder case, more often than not, what do you see from homicide? It's usually somebody that knew the people that they just killed, right? That just happens. It's more likely you're going to be killed by somebody you know than by somebody you don't know. Statistically. That's also here in like the Western societies, of course. Outside of the Western societies, it is a little different, but not really. It's relatively the same. But it just depends on what kind of society you live in, right? But what's really strange about this case is the fact that we hear this description of this tall, thin, tan-complexioned man who had been playing with the children at the beach. There were several accounts of this, and we don't know who this man is. Okay? We're going to get into details in just a second. It's peculiar. These children ended up going missing in the afternoon. Okay. And we're going to go and cover, there's a lot of map work we're going to be going over, so for those that are not into information when it comes to maps and really going over the details there, this is where you start getting into really fine point details. We are going to, of course, come back to this case. This won't be for a bit, but we will be coming back to this later on this year. Because of this, following the maps. I do enjoy the heck out of following map data and all this and really covering things that way because then you're almost getting kind of a play-by-play. They were seen here, bam, okay, so now we're playing, essentially this is like, it's not a game of cat and mouse per se, but it's more like a game of, maybe the best way to describe it. You're kind of playing like Guess Who. That's what I find so interesting when it comes to map work is you're doing a whole lot of Guess Who. Right, and now you got to fill this in through research. Now we're going to be playing like a logic problem, right? Which way did they go? But this is playing in all sorts of different directions, times, things like this. There's a lot of different things. So for those that are interested in that, yes, this will be coming back later this year. We're going to be doing the same thing with the Kyron Horman case as well. We are returning to that case here soon, but that will probably be closer to about October, if I had to guess, October, November. But that's the gist of the case here. And like I said, that's what makes this case so interesting, is the fact that these children went missing. People had spotted them, but then all of a sudden, in this little gap of an area, radio silence. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So as you can see here, I've got some key details and where there's a whole lot of map work. Why? Because there's really not a whole lot of data we have when it comes to evidence. That's why this case is so fun here. It's just there's no evidence. And I'm not trying to go, oh, let's just make a mockery of this case and let's see if it's fun or not. No. It's interesting. And this is where a lot of people end up finding this case is so difficult for that same reason, because there's really not a lot to go off of. You're going off of essentially a logic problem here. They had to go this way, and this is why. Here's your area of radio silence. Now, I've already narrowed it down. We're going to go and talk about it, and once we come back to it, you guys will actually get to see. I'll have the map updated pretty heavily. I've got a lot of notes right now I'm still covering on this, but these children, where they went missing, this kind of general area where they would have just basically, where it was radio silence. Okay? So we know that Glenn Beaumont dropped the children off at Glen Elk Beach, but there was no exact location was given. Now that, to me, that's a little odd. And correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys find the exact location, I've looked around. I've been looking all week. I couldn't find anything on the exact location where he dropped him off. There's been general speculation, but even he didn't really, from what I could see at least, did not actually remember exactly where he dropped them off, or he couldn't recall or something. There's something along those lines, but there was nobody really pushing for where was the exact location he dropped the children off, right? Well, this is important because where you drop them off at is going to be, now we can start taking a look at what route they went to go to the beach, what route they went to go to everywhere else they had been spotted at. Now, like I said earlier, Glen Beaumont was to be at an event for 3 days in Snowtown, that's what I meant to say, South Australia, which is about 2 hours away from Glen Elk. All right, well, now that's where things get a little interesting here, because now we have to confirm, is his alibi solid? If he's got a solid alibi, which, here's the thing, dropped him off and left. Now his alibi has ended from when he left the house. We know that he did leave because his wife was able to confirm that. Because both the parents had confirmed, yes, he did leave with the children. He was the one who dropped them off or had taken them, right? So that means he was technically, he very well could have been somebody that had done something. But except here's the thing. Now this is where we start getting into things where it kind of sways away from that. Okay. The children had been spotted by several witnesses playing with a thin man with a tan complexion at the beach. The man also approached a witness asking if someone had been near the children's belongings, as their money was now missing. Well, he knew they had money, just a little bit, but all of a sudden he's checking on this. So why would he be checking on this? Did the children come back to the belongings and, oh, the money's gone? We don't know what the details are. This is all basically what the police did. Now, this is where I say the police did a shoddy job at this case. Because end of the day, could they have asked more questions? Okay, well, how do we know? Did you spot them near this? Did you spot them near their belongings? If so, at what time roughly? What were they there for? Did they look flustered? Things like this. You can ask questions like this. Why? Because they would be very, very accurate. Now, however, they were not that far away from their house, and I would assume the eldest daughter would have been able to direct, the other two and get them home. I'm sure they weren't that far, especially this time. This has been a little more common practice, right? Even when I was growing up, leaving the house, going, up to about, I think about 5 miles away from the house, in elementary school would have been somewhat okay. With my family growing up, and that was in the 90s. Keep that in mind. This is in the 60s when this occurred. So, and this would also been around summertime as well, because once again, other side of the equator, this is where you start getting that, Australia's time zone and their summer months are opposite of those that are like in North America and things like that. But this is, like I said, this is where things get a little interesting. Okay, so After that, the children were also spotted at Wenzel's Bakery that same day. Okay, now keep in mind, Wenzel's is where that blue X mark is on the map right there. It's directly right there. That's where the building was up until, I think it was 2019. Shortly after COVID hit, that's where it shut down, basically. They stopped being at that exact location. But the children who never ate meat pies ordered pasties, which is like pastries and things like that, right? And a meat pie with one note, right? I don't know how much a note is. I don't have the exact calculation. All I know is it's a lot more than a shilling and pence, right? So, but children were only given 6 shillings and 6 pence that day by their mother. So that's the really interesting thing here. Now, the bakery, the person that the police had spoken to, I'm not sure if it was a manager or just a regular employee, this person had several encounters with these children over the years. And they'd always, they would order pasties. They never ordered meat pies. Never. So the fact they each ordered their pasties and then they went and there was a meat pie there tells you, well, now this man becomes even more viable. And on top of that, they were only given 6 shillings, 6 pence. Now you're also looking at the whole thing, okay, well, he gave him a note for it, and they were given 6 shillings and 6 pence. There's a big difference there, right? So they were able to pay for that, and then they were on their way. However, the children were later spotted walking down Jetty Road, which is on that same, it's right along that area right there, by their mailman long after they were supposed to be home and without a care in the world. That was the last anybody had allegedly seen them. Okay? So that's right along in that area, Jetty Road. And then now you've got this entire area. All the way from here. It's radio silent. So we know that they had been somewhere over in this area. Now, it's fair to assume if they had been to Wenzel's, chances are they probably didn't go any farther than, I would argue, probably around this area to right around this area. So chances are, and they were given the money to ride the bus, which means chances are they should have only been, at worst, probably in this area. Over here in the top left quadrant of the map, or the image there, right? That's what I would assume, since, well, if they're given bus fare, the mom doesn't trust them to go outside of the specific path. It means chances are they didn't really know these areas a whole lot. Or if they did, there was a reason the mom said no, just ride the bus home, right? Chances are, my guess is they were near Glen Elk, like their little center area over here. Near this, I think this is the beach house. I would argue probably near somewhere over there. Okay. Which means that's where they're going to go get on the bus, and then go right back home. Because that's the exact route it takes. Bam, bam, bam. Takes you right there. And then they have to walk, 2 blocks home? It's not bad. But like I said, it's a little odd because you have this thin, tan man. And he's in this equation as well. We have no idea really anything past him. And like I said, this is directly where we start getting into this. Well, okay, who saw who where? So once we get the details, we're going to start marking the map up. Like I said, this is a little short show tonight, but this is essentially where we're at with this case. We need to know the exact location the kids are dropped off at. Now, logically, I would assume it's probably right over there near the beach house area. They're dropped off there, and they were expected to just go down to the beach and play. Chances are, if they went down and played immediately, let's say Glenn drove off, right? Then he gets back on the road and he's heading towards the house. Well, allegedly he'd also gotten off early from this thing. Well, if he got away early from this, how early? Well, based on the data I've found, it sounds like he was also home that same day, which means not too far away, a couple hours. So is it possible maybe the dad did this? The dad had never really been spotted with the children? I mean, there's a lot of different things we can ask with this. Like I said, this is what we've got. This is what we've got to work with here. And I still have lots and lots of stuff to go and sift through. I've had lots of time this week to go and just try and sift through it. Some of it I'm sitting on thinking, okay, this doesn't add up here. And that's why I'm still questioning dad's alibi here. Because here's the thing, the children were never seen with the man outside of the beach. Yet they're getting him a meat pie. Why? Were they going back down to the beach? Something's a little off about this, but that other man is I believe going to be the key to this. Figuring out who he is key. Now the big thing with this is there's also a couple novels. I don't want to say novels. There's a few books that have come out over the years and naming some suspects. We're not going to get into the suspects tonight. I just want to go and hit on a couple notes here before the show is over tonight. But they name a few suspects. In fact, this one that names this man, they basically codenamed the Satin Man. He had a construction company. And allegedly, his son even thinks that he had buried the children there. But he had done it. His father had. There's been no proof to suggest it, but it's interesting. We'll be exploring that next time we touch on this case. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at noon for Real News Now with Strange Investigations on Spotify. So be sure to check that out, especially as there is tons and tons of news that just had come out since this last broadcast. So be sure to check that out. Even if you guys are not into the news, I highly suggest it. Lots and lots of information that you will not get anywhere put together, at least together, by any other news outlet out there. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will